I received a Rotary Club scholarship when I graduated from high school to go to college. I grew up in Manhattan Beach, California, and I'm not sure why I got that scholarship. I was very involved in school. I was if you guys have seen the movie Rushmore, I describe, like, that's what I was like in high school. So they were like, yeah, I don't know what to do with this kid, but go off and do something. And that's kind of how I became a restaurateur. It was all by accident. I went to college and I just worked in restaurants while I was in college, and then when I graduated I worked for a nonprofit for 4 years, and I was living in Washington, D.C., and I thought, well, I want to go see if I'm the same person if I go and live in a different city. And so I tried New York or San Francisco, and I thought I'd try New York or San Francisco and ended up on San Francisco, and was like, oh, just wait tables again until I figure out my next career move. And that's okay, I'm always on. I would have done it if we weren't at my restaurant. I started working in restaurants in San Francisco, and it was right at a time, it was in 2005, it was kind of right around the time when like chefs started becoming celebrities, and like restaurant work went from like a blue collar job to like something that like thinking people were doing, and the whole farm to table movement, and worrying about like where your food was coming from, and you know, the provenance of things, and the sustainability of things. And I was really attracted to that, and got really interested in it, and worked with some amazing chefs that I learned a ton from, and then started to get really into wine for the same reasons. And I met the chef that I own Hopscotch with, who's still the chef here, Kyle Itani. We opened Yoshi's in San Francisco. There was a giant group of managers for that, but he was one of the sous chefs, I was one of the managers, and immediately we sort of hit it off and started kind of geeking out about restaurants, and we'd spend our days off just going to bars and restaurants and spending the whole day. You know, we could afford like one appetizer at one place and one drink at another place, and but we would make a whole day of it, and you know, talk about the service and the plating and the everything. So eventually he was like, yeah, we're gonna open a restaurant. And I was like, what? Why would anyone come to our restaurant? But then we did it. And it just sort of happened. I was consulting, and he had gone traveling, and he was actually in Japan when the tsunami hit 10 years ago now. And he called me and he was like, I'm gonna come back because I feel like I'm gonna drain on the resources here. And I said, cool, I'm consulting at this place. I need a chef here, just come work with me. And then we both got like paid by this company to work not very hard and concentrate entirely on opening up our own place. So it was a nice opportunity and a huge gift to be able to do that. And I think we got here right at the right time. I kept like looking down, we really wanted something on Telegraph. I kept looking down San Pablo, being like, what's down there? And he was like, no, like not San Pablo. And you know, we tried and tried, but we were nobodies and had no money. And so finally we came in and looked at Hopscotch, which had been a barbecue spot called Chef Edwards Barbecue, and it had been closed for about a year, and it had barbecue sauce on the ceiling. And we walked in, and he was like, can this work? And I looked around, and I thought, huh, yeah, actually I think this can work. And it was cheap, and so anyway, we put everything we had into it, and opened up, and really struggled for about 6 months, and then finally like people just were coming and having a good time. And after about 6 months, Michael Bauer and at the Chronicle finally came and started visiting us and gave us a really lovely review, and called Kyle, you know, rising star chef. And the day after that review came out, I pulled into our driveway in the back, and he had set up a prep table in the parking lot, and he was prepping, and we didn't have this space at all yet. We didn't have a walk-in refrigerator, which is on this side. And I was like, oh, this is not good, this can't happen. So this was just all being used for storage, and I called the landlord, and I was like, we need that space. And so we built a walk-in, and this space eventually happened. anyway, that's kind of the story of how we started. It's been 9 years. We just had in June, it was 9 years, which is crazy and seems like such a long time. But I think we've always been just tried to be really consistent, and we take great pride in the fact that we've been a part of this street changing, we have a really good relationship with our neighbors, and I don't know, it's kind of our own little like entree into the community, and it's been really fun for me because we were pretty young and inexperienced when we started, as far as like owning our own place and having like a strong position in the community. We have had now this time to like grow up here and help like mentor some of the people that came up under us. We have two of our like family have now opened restaurants close by also, and we got to be a big part of like helping them do that. One of them just sort of mentoring, the other one financing and building, and so the fact that now they have their own place and they're doing well, and the opportunity to keep like just promoting the kind of standards that we hold dear. One of the things that I'm really proud of is that during the pandemic, we never closed. It was a very, very difficult year. We had almost an entire turnover in our front of house staff because they were all happy to go on unemployment, but our kitchen staff was not or could not. And we have the exact same kitchen staff with the exception of like a dishwasher, and have had like just like zero turnover, and they're all so consistent and dedicated at this point. And I don't know if they even totally like understand because they've just been working the whole time, their same position, but it's been like an honor to be able to like do that and take care of our people in this way. I think that's going to be my spiel, but I am happy to answer lots of questions about anything. Yes?
Yeah, when we ate here, I was making an assumption about the name of your restaurant, but the bartender just happened to break it out for us. My wife and I, while we were sitting at the bar eating, would you mind sharing with us how you came up with the name Hopscotch?
I'll tell you, I'm curious if it's going to be the same story that the bartender told you.
I mean, he said, it had something to do with Scotch,
yeah.
number one.
Yeah.
And I thought, okay, single malt Scotch.
Yeah.
He was talking about the Japanese connection.
Yeah.
And then he also talked about, there's this machine that you had right there.
Yeah.
That is the only machine, I think, at the time at least, here, I don't know if it's in the U.S. or in California, where when the beer comes out, it's cooled. And I don't know if it's Sapporo or some other beer.
Yes, this is great. Yes. So the name, when I was doing that consulting job and we were trying to do this, I worked at that job until we, like literally the day we opened the doors because we had nothing. And I was commuting to Danville for this job, and I was living in San Francisco in the very beginning. And so I had a lot of time on the road, and I would just think of concepts constantly because we knew we were going to try to open someplace. And Hopscotch popped into my head one day, and I thought, okay, cool. This is like a food-centric like bar, and we'll focus on like brown liquor and beer, and then hops and scotch. We could do hops and scotch pairings. So we have hops and scotch pairings on the menu. And yes, and then when the concept started kind of coming together, Kyle is half Japanese, and we worked at Japanese restaurants. His mentor chef is Japanese, so he's a Japanese chef. Like those are his ingredients and his techniques. But he's very American. He's fourth generation American. So he was like, I want it to be kind of Americana with a little bit of a Japanese influence. And so when we kind of decided to go with Hopscotch, we're like, it doesn't really relate, but it's just a good name. And it kind of goes with us because we just want this to be like approachable and playful and fun. And we knew the bar program was going to be pretty central. And we're like, okay, we could do like Japanese whiskey and you know, Hopscotch, and so we kind of played with it. You're talking about the Asahi machine that we have, which unfortunately we don't have Asahi right now because I don't know if you guys have heard of all these shipping issues that are happening, but our Asahi kegs come directly from Japan because of the machine that we have. Most Asahi and Sapporo and Japanese beers, the big brands, are made in Canada or Southern California, most of them. And this machine allows us to get the beer directly from Japan. Maybe it's not that different, but I think it's different. It's a little bit more pristine. They care very much about the water that goes into it. It's a little bit of a different process. And the keg sits outside a refrigerator, and then it goes through this machine, and it gets it ice cold to perfect temperature, and then it's got a maneuver that pours the beer perfectly, and then you push it back to get the perfect amount of head on it, and it comes in a special glass, and it's delightful.
Well, I will tell you, we said, wow. When we heard it, we were like, wow.
I'm glad that bartender had a good spiel down for you. It's great. It's great.
I remember it. It's
Yeah.
been several years, so yeah.
Good, good, good.
Any other questions?
Can you tell us a little bit more about handling the pandemic?
Yeah.
I know, any small business, it's an enormous disruption.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it was a lot. So initially you knew what was going to happen right away, because before anything was mandated, business just went like that week. And we're like, what is going on? Luckily, we had a concept already for kind of like going to a fast casual model, or having like an outlet that was like a fast casual. So we sort of had that menu kind of set, and we were already experimenting with some of it for to go. So it was fairly easy we decided, okay, we're just gonna close. It's all of the for here stuff. If it doesn't work to go, then it's just coming off the menu. And then we sat down and we came up with some more sandwiches and some more sides and other things that would go well for to go. And it worked. I think it was the right price point. It was really well. There were options for individuals and options for families that worked well. And so initially our to-go business, because our labor costs, because we lost all of our front of house staff for the most part, we could have just 1 or 2 people working, our labor cost was a lot lower. And so even though our sales were marginally lower, we were kind of fine. We weren't really making money because we still had the same rent and insurance and stuff to cover, but we weren't losing money. And so we were really fortunate for that. And the to-go business was very robust. But I think, after freaking 5 or 6 months of that, like, people just got tired of everything, and so it started to taper off. And then some people did start to do some outdoor dining. We were a little bit hesitant on that in the beginning, because the way we built this is not really the way you're supposed to build it, and I didn't want to build anything less than this. But finally we just went for it and slowly started building business up again. And then we got closed down again, no more outdoor dining. And that was pretty crushing. But then we did, for the holidays, we did some special takeout meals. We did Thanksgiving to-go stuff. And those were always days that we would always be closed on Thanksgiving. So we let the staff have it off, and just Kyle and I did it. And it was our best, literally one of our best sales days ever. I went to, it's hard to get turkeys right up to Thanksgiving. The big distributors are out, right? So I went the day before Thanksgiving, I went to Whole Foods and I just filled a grocery cart with turkeys. And people thought I was insane.
That was you.
It was hilarious. Yeah, it was me. I bought all the below 40-pound turkeys that they had. Yeah. But yeah, so, it was definitely a challenge. And then we were able to open up again, and we had to entirely rebuild and retrain a front of house staff. And then along all of that, it was so, I was working harder than I've ever worked, but you're also demoralized by everything that's going on. You guys know, you were there. And I and then the BLM stuff is happening at the same time, and the protests, and then we'd have a good day where we could have, it was nice air outside and we could have outdoor seating, but then there would be a protest coming, or, it was just like no breaks at all. So I think for a lot of it, I was just like, I felt so creatively spent that I was like, I don't know how I'm ever gonna like do this again. And for me, travel is my way. I mean, as soon as we started having any success here, I said to Kyle, I was like, what are you gonna do? When we have like a steady paycheck? And he was like, I don't know. And I'm like, I'm gonna travel. I'm gonna start traveling. And he's like, okay. And I work all the time except when I still work when I'm traveling too, but I like take a day off when I travel, and I travel a lot. Like there have been years where I go on a big trip every month, and I have been lucky to like have a team where I can do that, and it's literally like the time that I get off, and it's great, but it's been really hard not to be able to do that too. So yeah, anyway, I feel like I'm still kind of getting my footing back, but also it feels like it just, as soon as we could have guests back here and people were coming, and they would walk up to the gate and be totally decked out, and I'm like, oh, where are you going? You look so, and then I'm like, they're not going anywhere, they're going here. Like there's nowhere to go, Yeah, and it was so, and then people would come and just be so gracious and have such an amazing time, and then we finally get to do what we're doing and we love doing well, instead of being a glorified fast food restaurant. And so it's really nice to be back at it and like kind of just be and remember like, oh, this is why I do this. Yeah.
So comparing the glorified fast food restaurant with the destination
Yes.
evening, what do you foresee, assuming that we continue on a reasonable trajectory?
Yeah.
What do you foresee as your mix? Are you going to keep takeout? Are you going to totally eliminate takeout?
Yeah, we had takeout before, and I think we'll keep it. It's dropped a lot. So at first it was obviously all of our business, and then it went down to maybe being 60%, and then down to 40%, and now it's probably down to 15 to 20%. People want to be out. A lot of people want to be out, and I know that there's still some people who actually like haven't ventured out still, which I don't get it. I'm out all the time, but I think that it'll probably stay kind of around where it is now, and we'll keep it. I mean, there's not really any reason not to if you kind of have the numbers worked out. I'm sure you've heard about the fees that DoorDash charges and stuff like that, and all these things. So they do make it pretty hard to be sustainable, but I think we're kind of getting on top of that and starting. I mean, yeah.
Do you have an impression from your clientele? So, for example, over the last year and a half, I've done takeout, but never delivery. I've always picked it up myself.
Oh, that's nice of you.
So that's my point.
Yes.
Do you have a feeling from your clientele as to who does what?
Well, I mean, I know, because I know if it's being picked up by a DoorDash driver or who are many times the bane of my existence. But I
mean, could you eliminate delivery services and still do takeout?
We could, but I think it would reduce it a lot. Yeah, it's definitely great when people do it, but it's maybe only 20-25% of the orders. So it would probably reduce it by about that much. I do think that most of the people who order from us are ordering because they want to order from Hopscotch, not because they went to DoorDash and like looked for something they wanted to eat. I would imagine it's probably because you can find cheaper fried chicken or something. But
it's not nearly as good.
Thank you. Yeah, so.
I'm curious, what were your offspring restaurants that?
Yeah, so the first one is called Friends and Family. It's a kind of food, it's a bar, but it has food. It's on 25th between Telegraph and Broadway. It's a lovely.
By the Parkway Theater, is that? By
the Parkway Theater, yep, yeah. And then, so Blake, who owns that, was an original hire server here. She wanted to learn to bartend, so we taught her to bartend. She wanted to learn to manage, so we taught her to manage. And then she left and did some other things, and then she helped Kyle open Itani Ramen. I opened an Irish pub in Jack London Square that I'm no longer involved with. And she helped me do that, and then she went off and did her own thing. And then the other one was called Low Bar, and that just opened in March. And that is our former sous chef and one of our former bar managers. And that's the one, I mean, I ended up also during the pandemic, I was the contractor for that project because we lost our contractor because we lost our funding in the beginning, right, when we were when we had just signed the lease. And so I became the contractor for that, and we funded it. That's where the original Hawker Fair space, yeah. So that's a great spot too. They also have a private dining room and some outdoor seating on the, yeah.
Are you going to do Thanksgiving again?
I think I'm warming Kyle up to it because it's, well, it's great. It's just that he really loves Thanksgiving for him. Like we usually take Thanksgiving off, and that's our day. I love cooking, he loves cooking, and we do that with our families. And it's not as fun when you do it for 100 people and then you go do it for your family. So, but I think I can talk. I think we will. Yes, we have on our website on the front page. There's at the bottom, you can put your email address in and get on our newsletter so you can make sure not to miss things like that. Yeah. I also am a part owner at Nito's Backyard in Jack London Square, which is...
Which we ate at, and I go there often with my daughter.
Cool, yeah.
What a great space that is.
Isn't it great? Yeah, feels good. Yes, sir.
In terms of trends in dining, particularly in menu, what are you noticing as some of the changes in our local palate, and how are you kind of, as Red Steve would say, skating to where the puck is going to be?
Fair. I don't know if we're necessarily following any of it. I think that I see that a lot of the rise of the food-centric bar, Low Bar. There's another place, Viridian, who one of the owners actually used to work here as well, and friends and family are all examples of this, where it's kind of like a bar, but you can go and like have a lot of like small plates and have a full meal. I think that's partly because people are looking to find like more interesting things and like, small bites. They just want kind of like a more array of stuff. People are getting more adventurous. They don't just want like one plate in front of them. They want to feel like they're tasting a lot of things. I think we're going to continue, like any Asian influence in any other type of food. So just like pick any food and then add any Asian influence, and that like is just going to continue to happen. But I think it's because people are like, the same way like IPA is like so popular, it's really punchy. Like if you don't know, but IPA has a ton of sugar in it, and the reason you don't know that is because it's also really bitter. So it balances out. It's also got a lot of alcohol in it, so you get very drunk and very hungover. But, these things are like super bold flavors, and so people are looking for like bold flavors, I think, to go along with that. It's kind of the stuff that I see the most.
I see. And then the other question along the same lines is, and this is nothing personal or anything, but I'm noticing people are becoming more vegan, pescatarian, restaurants, some are making that transition.
Says the pescatarian. It's not personal.
Yeah, I think it's really
Vegan, post-vegan.
Yeah, it's a really interesting question. I'm hyper aware of this stuff. I'm very careful about what I eat. I definitely eat meat because I mostly eat keto, but there's also a keto trend, I think, a lot of places. Fish is fish is so healthy and good for you, but it's super problematic as well. It is the only ingredient that like we can't even always identify where exactly it came from. It's because it's it's not where it's caught, it's the origin of the boat or the port that they take it into. So you never really know. It's often mislabeled. It's often not sustainable. Or if it is sustainable, it's stuff like tilapia and I can't eat tilapia, even though you should, because it's like probably after the apocalypse, that's the only fish we're going to have. But until then, I'm probably not going to eat it. Like it's, you know, yeah, so it's, yeah, I mean, we try to be aware of these things, and I hope that people care, you know, people should care about where their food is coming from and where they're, regardless of what it is. And I think that that's the real behind pescatarians, right? You just have to like care. It's healthier, but it's also, yeah, you're concerned with big farms. And we catered this really amazing event a couple of years ago called the Grass-Fed Beef Exchange. And it's an organization of farmers throughout the country. And it's not particularly about grass-fed beef, but it's about sustainable farming and all sorts of sustainable farmers. And it was fascinating, and there's tons going on in it. And I hope that, you know, this is the kind of stuff that like Congress needs to pass, like a farm bill or something like that, that makes our whole like farming industry not so messed up, and it can trickle down to the restaurants. But it's really difficult for an individual consumer or an individual restaurant to really make an impact in these areas. And I think they are huge, huge concerns and things that people should think about, whether it's, you know, your carbon footprint because you're eating meat, or if you're being a vegetarian. I mean, it's so hard. You want to be doing the right things, and you're just like, there's always something wrong with the decision you're making, you know? And it's something that I definitely wrestle with.
Damn you, Twinkie!
I know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's because there's a about it.
Miscellaneous.
Any other?
What's your view on Instagram pop-ups? I think one thing that's happened with me during the pandemic was all these Instagram feeds that would come up of a new restaurant or somebody just trying to cook from home and then
Yeah. People cooking in their house or like, you know, delivering food. And I mean, I am 100% in support of individual entrepreneurs, but some of it is frustrating because I'm happy to hire you at a fair wage and use your thing and then support you doing it in a legitimate way. I think that it's really, like, we go through stuff you would not believe to get health inspections and, you know, all that, and permitting and all that kind of stuff. And so for someone to be able to do it out of their home and, you know, have no overhead and have no workers' comp insurance and no rent, all these things, it's a little tough. I mean, I'm not in full support of it. And I think there's reasons, you know. I mean, I think sometimes the health department makes us do very crazy things, but for the most part, you know, there's a reason behind it, and it makes sense. And you know, those people don't have to be held to those same considerations.
One more question.
Yeah.
So one of the things that I got exposed to at Hopscotch were all the cocktails and like the cocktail scene in general. One drink that I had was called the Ectoplasm. It's a nod to a high C drink, if any of you are familiar with.
You remember it then? Yes.
It wasn't on the menu today, but
Yeah, it's not. It's I changed the name of it eventually, and we started doing it. But yes, So do you remember that high C drink though? It was. Yeah. I'm like it. Yeah, I remember that. Yeah. It was a flavor that I remembered, and I was like, oh gosh. And then that St. George, so it's made with St. George California citrus vodka, which is very delicious for a flavored vodka. It tastes just like fresh citrus. And we have a really great relationship with St. George. Cute story, Lance, the master distiller at St. George, the very first day we opened, I hadn't gotten my liquor license yet, and some distributor had given me some cheap vodka for free, and I'm like, I'm just gonna make vodka cocktails, and people have a choice of two, and they get one for free. I'm not gonna charge them for it, and I hope I don't get in trouble with the ABC. I just feel we need to open, we need some revenue coming in, and this is what we've got. And so Lance had come in for dinner. I didn't know him, and he's like, "Why am I drinking a shitty vodka cocktail?" He's so mad, right? And so I go up and I, just touching the table, saying hi, and he's like, "What's the deal with this?" And I tell him, and he's like, "Do you want some gin?" And I'm like, "What?" And he's like, "Do you want some gin?" And I'm like, "What? Oh, I like gin?" And he's like, "I own a distillery. I'll bring you some gin." And I'm like, "What?" And he's like, "St. George." I'm like, "St. George?" And he's like, "Yes. What do you want?" And I'm like, "I don't know." And so the next day he just pulls up, and he used to smoke these big stogies, and he gets out and he's like tall and bald, and he like is walking up and he's just got 2 cases of gin, and he walks in and puts them on the bar and is like, "Here you go, gin." He's great. He was in for dinner last night. So we always have a St. George cocktail on, is the point. And anyway, that Ecto Cooler that vodka came in, and I'm like, "This is so good." And I just I had a sense memory about that drink, and I was like, "I've got some kiwi," and I just smashed up the kiwi and made that drink, and it was like one of those where you just do it and it's perfect and you don't need to change anything, and it's a fun drink. So, yeah.
Oh,
Thank you.
we wanted to short things and donate some vaccines in your name.
Amazing.
Yeah. So for those of you who might not know, Rotary one of our missions is to end polio now. It's been an initiative of ours for 30 years.
Again, started before you were alive.
When I was born.
87. Were you born then?
90.
Yeah.
The 90s, baby. Sorry. So it's only endemic in 2 countries, Afghanistan and Pakistan. Recently in August, it was eradicated from Africa. So thank you so much for being
My pleasure.
part of
Thank
this.
you.